I'm Carrie.
I'm Toni, and we are
Two Cranky Creatives.
This podcast is brought to you by the Graphics Gang, our online community you can find at patreon.com/graphics gang. Paid members can also watch many of the unedited podcast video recordings. So what are we cranky about today, Toni?
Carrie. Today we are cranky about the nonsense that floats around that you must draw every single day in order to be successful in this life.
And that makes me cranky, and I think that's bullshit. Not that it makes me cranky. I think it's bullshit that you have to draw every day.
Oh, it's totally bullshit. I call bullshit on it all day long.
Yeah.
You know, and it goes hand in hand with that nonsense that I used to see all the time during lockdown. If you come out of lockdown without without publishing that book or whatever the hell it was, whatever version of it was, I was like, no, you can just like sit here and manage your trauma for lockdown. Like you don't have to hustle to make something happen, you know? So, so let me ask you a question, Carrie. Have you ever had an everyday drawing practice?
No. I will go through spurts of drawing. Basically, it's like if I happen to have a time in my life where I don't have a million things going on with like social activities, and house stuff and cat stuff and, other work stuff. And then I go, wow, I can't believe I have a couple days, 2-3 days in a row where I don't have a million things to do. Then yes, if I have that opportunity, I will take advantage of it. But I have never been able to intentionally say and set up drawing practice and intentionally say, okay, so for these 2 weeks in a row or this 30 days, my God, that's so intimidating. I'm going to draw every day because first of all, I don't have time. And secondly, I don't always have the energy. And I want to add one thing. So it makes me cranky that there's like shame in that, but also sometimes when I sit down to draw, and I know this happens to everybody, I hate everything I'm making. I'm like, that looks like shit. That looks like shit. Why can't I draw an eye today? Why can't I draw like a square? You know what I mean? It's something stupid. And the more that keeps happening, the more angry I get at myself, and I'm really self-critical. And then I just feel terrible. And I would rather have a day where I didn't draw at all, but I did other stuff, even if it wasn't fun stuff, than a day where I forced myself all day, even though I was just not in the flow. And then I'm not going to like anything I made anyway. So then I'm going to feel like I wasted my time. So sometimes I just have to, if I sit down to draw, even if it is a drawing day and I'm just not feeling it, I get up and walk away. I have to.
Yeah. Yeah. I relate to that very much. Very briefly, I think when I was writing my first 2 novels, I was in a headspace where I had a word count every day and I made that word count, but I never went a word over it. Right. Sometimes it was a slog, but I have never had a drawing practice that was every single day. And I relate, I think I told you before that, I had to set a rule for myself that I could hate it and that was fine, but I wasn't allowed to delete it. Right. I had to walk away from it. Yeah. And I had to walk away from it. And if 30 days after I drew it, I still hated it, I could delete it, you know, but I had to sit with it because I'm so self-critical that I'll hate it in the moment. But then I'll come back, if I don't delete it, I'll come back a week later and be like, oh, I can save that. Or that's not as bad as I thought it was. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of times with where my mental health ebbs and flows, I don't have objectivity to view my own work some days. Yeah. And so it's better for me to take a step back, or honestly not work on whatever thing I'm working on and work on something else, but no, absolutely not. I do not. And honestly, with everything I've got going on, I think I'd drive myself nuts if I tried to squeeze drawing every day in on top of everything else too.
Yeah. And I know people who participate in 30-day challenges. And then of course there's the famous 100-day challenge. And I mean, I have nothing but admiration for those people, but that is something, the idea of doing that makes me feel like I want to jump out of my skin. I feel terrified.
Mhm.
I feel frozen. And it's like, and then you're supposed to show your work, which is like, wait a minute, like, but what if I don't like it? I don't want to
Right.
show everything. Sometimes I'm not comfortable showing everything that I'm working on. So I have admiration for people who can do that. And maybe if I if I did sit down and do maybe a 5-day challenge or a 30-day challenge. But the thing is too, the challenge idea, I love the idea. And I hosted a drawing challenge with a group of lovely ladies on Instagram this spring, and it was fun. But even that was like really stressful. And the problem that I guess I have, not with everybody's challenges, but there's just kind of this unspoken thing with drawing challenges, is there's like shame in it. If you
Mhm.
don't live up to what everyone else is doing, especially when you look at what they're doing, you're like forced to compare yourself with others. You're never going to like what you did as much,
Right.
and then you're just going to feel terrible, which is, I think, kind of a vicious cycle. And, I end up doing the best drawing that I do is there's two situations. One would be if I have a deadline and it's for someone else and I'm getting paid to do it, then I can look at it like work and I'm like, okay, I have to get this done, and I can draw every day, 5, 6 days in a row if I have a big project. That's fine. But
Mhm.
if I'm doing like leisure drawing or the kind of drawing that's maybe going to get licensed or maybe I'm going to put on print on demand, the times that I feel like I can successfully draw multiple days in a row, first of all, I don't set that as my expectation. I set it as a pipe dream goal and hoping I can make that, but not pressuring myself. And then usually it's stuff that I want to draw just for me, like cat wine, like I just did. Like I did that
Which I
feline
love.
wine. Oh, thank you. But I mean, that was not for anybody but me. I mean, I thought, well, I'm sure maybe people like it and I'll put it out there, but I just really wanted to make it. And that was the kind of drawing that made me happy, and it was
Mhm.
just funny, and it was fun. But especially when there's like a challenge and people are giving you prompts, I understand the reasoning behind it. But I never have a shortage of ideas. I always
Mhm.
have a running list of ideas.
Mhm.
The issue is when I have to fit into someone else's idea of how many days in a row you do it and this challenge, and then everyone's showing each other's work.
Right.
And I think because I don't need accountability, I find that can be more harmful to me than helpful.
Well, and we probably should do a whole episode around challenges. I have a lot of pet peeves when it comes to challenges.
Yeah.
One, yes, the whole like draw every day, especially when I found out on the back end of a challenge recently that a lot of people pay for early access to the prompts. And so that means they're queuing them up ahead
Oh,
of time.
man.
Right.
So they
And
really aren't necessarily drawing those at the same time as everyone else.
no, because you can get them a month ahead, right?
Yeah.
And you know what? And fine, that's cool. You want to shell your money out for that? I don't have a problem with that. But I'm saying, but for the average person who maybe doesn't want to give you $40 for 30-day access to this, you know what I'm saying? It's
Yeah.
like, there's this pressure that you're going to have to draw, in real time or whatever. But and then the whole tag me and hashtag, yeah, sure, it's about sharing work, but that's also helping them with the algorithm. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So, so it's like, but like, new artist, Jane Doe, who's got 100 followers, is not getting helped out by that. You know what I'm saying? So like,
Yeah.
so like there's no reciprocity. And
Yeah.
unless you just happen to be one of the ones of like the thousands of people who gets featured. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like, so I don't think there's the reciprocity. And then recently there was a challenge that I was planning to participate in. And I have learned to take the standpoint of here's this challenge and I just pick and choose which ones interest me. I don't care what day they fall on. Like I'll post my work on that day, but like I'm never going to do a daily challenge. Like I love the 30 flowers in your style challenge. I think it is. I think DeInky is the one who does it. Great challenge.
Yeah.
Super fun. There's no way I'm never going to do it. So like I look at her list and I'm like, okay, I think I like the tulips. I'll do the tulips. I got 10 days to draw it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like,
Yeah. And you can do it anytime that month. Illustrators for Hire does that, which I love. They do 3 categories and they have like a mix and match, and you can do it any day that month.
Yeah.
And also Inktober is one that I love because basically it's like any day during the month of October, draw any one of these 31 things, and you can draw your own interpretation of, you can draw one or whatever. It doesn't matter what order you put it in. And I like that because it's way more, I think, inclusive. And, you know, maybe if you're new to drawing, I mean, sometimes you don't feel comfortable yet trying to draw a walrus. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like maybe that's too complicated, but you want to draw a flower, and that's totally fine. And that's more accessible. And that's something you feel like you can sit down and then, okay, I can show this and I'll be proud to show this. So then you don't have to draw everything. Yeah.
Right.
Well, there's so much shame in, like, I guess it comes down to my general pet peeve of, and now I'm going to sound old, social media. And I know we're going to talk about that in another podcast, but you know, you only see the shiny side of things on social media. And then all I do, and I still do it, and I try not to, but it's hard not to, is compare myself. And drawing challenges that expect you to draw every day, you know, feed into that kind of narrative of, if you're not living up to these standards that you're seeing on this platform, then you're not good enough. And I hate that. It makes me cranky.
Right. No, I completely agree with you. And, you know, like this is, I have a point, believe it or not. It's going to be a little roundabout way to get there though. So
that's okay. Whenever you get there, we're here.
So on my dog walking route, we passed this little building that's like 4 different apartments. And they look straight out of like Chicago projects, right? I mean, I'm talking like blinds that are broken. There's a sheet for a curtain on one of them.
Nice.
You know,
tags on the building.
right? You know, it's just like, it just looks run down, low income, but every car parked in front of it is a BMW. And I'm like, I always think about the dichotomy of that when I walk by, because I'm like, first of all, I'm like, if any of these are guys, what are the women thinking when they bring them home from dates? Like,
you know what I just keep thinking is hashtag priorities.
Right?
But yeah, I know. It's like I'm going to pick you up in my BMW. I hope they don't bring the ladies back there, or their their male date or whatever. It's like, dude.
Right. But so I'm like, you know, so like that dichotomy it just sticks with me. So, and where I'm going with that is like, so when I see for like social media, you know, I try very hard. One, I am very hardcore about social media breaks and scheduling stuff out. So like, I actually have my social media posts scheduled through the end of the year right now.
Wow.
I'm not even looking at social media. I'm just responding if somebody comments on something that I've posted, and that's it. And I even do that through like an aggregator. So like, I don't even have to like be in my feed to do it. I don't want to interact with social media. You know, sometimes, I'm like, I'm bored. Let me scroll Instagram, you know, and then I'll see some people's stuff and like it or whatever. But I'm like, no, I just, you know, I have hard rules about taking a step away, you know, but also just like, and I think maybe it was Stacy that said this in Leverage, but she was like, don't compare maybe it wasn't. I don't know. But
I know what you're going to say. I bet. Go ahead.
Don't compare your beginning to somebody else's middle or end.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that quote. It's so true. And I will repeat it in case people didn't hear it. Yeah. Don't compare your beginning to someone else's middle. Stacy Bloomfield, thank you for that quote. It's so true.
It is. It's very true. And so when I look at, you know, like the Stacey Bloomfields and the Bonnie Christines and, you know, and even Kat Cocolette, you know, like looking at them, they're in a different stage of their career than I am. You know what I'm saying? Especially in surface pattern design and licensing and things like that. And then my work, the work that I'm spending all of my time on is behind the scenes because I'm doing freelance gigs for other people. Right. You know what I'm saying? So like, like right now, I've just signed on to do like a corporate thank you card for the holidays. Like nobody's gonna see that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And sometimes I don't always share that. In fact, I very rarely share a lot of that stuff on social media because my Instagram is really for my patterns.
Right. Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? So like, right now I'm sharing all the illustrations I did for the book that I was hired to do. Because they're fun and they're illustrations, and that's one of the things that I do. So that's fine. I don't mind doing that work. But like, I'm not going to share my corporate Christmas card.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so for me, it can be very easy for me to get lost in, looking at like a cat cocolette or something like that and feeling like I don't measure up.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have to remind myself, but you know what? All this other stuff, like today actually was the first time in I think 3 weeks I've actually used Procreate to draw something.
Yeah.
Because
I understand that. Yeah. I mean,
right?
I take breaks. Yeah, you have to.
Yeah. And then too, there's a lot of post-production with, freelance stuff and tweaks and revisions, so we're not in creation anymore. We're in revising and finalizing.
Right.
I haven't had a need to be in Procreate, you know? So, but this all goes back to, and that this career is not one size fits all, and too many of I don't even know what word to use, Carrie. I'm just going to say the people out there that are advocating for, if you want to be successful, you have to draw every day.
Or you have to do it this way, like the way I did it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the drawing every day thing is just, some people don't have time to do that either.
Mm-hmm.
Either they don't have the mental energy or, again, I am a big proponent of, if you sit down and you hate what you're drawing, don't be afraid to get up and walk away, even for an hour.
Right.
Or take a shower or take a nap or go drink some tea or go on a walk or something.
Right.
But, sometimes if I'm stuck on a problem, like I need a design solution and I can't, you get stuck in this loop in your head and you're like, maybe I could try that. No. And then you keep going in circles. Sometimes if I just walk away for like 15 minutes, it solves itself.
Right.
And so, and sometimes it takes a day or two.
Yeah,
but
totally.
Yeah, the draw every day thing. Can I want to throw out something else that makes me cranky that's in the same vein.
Sure.
I also want to know if this makes you cranky. So this is not to criticize anybody who does this, because a lot of people do it, but I have a sketchbook that looks like a serial killer made it, because it is a mess. It looks like 10 different people drew in it, because it's been going on for a long time. It's a disaster. Things in there are just, I wouldn't show them to myself later, even they're so bad. But there are people out there that are all about, do your sketchbook practice, and then they do a tour of their sketchbook, and their sketchbook looks like a book I would buy at a bookstore.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait a minute, that's not a sketchbook.
No.
A sketchbook is, you're sketching out your ideas. I have a page in my sketchbook that is literally just a bunch of mouths, and open mouth, closed mouth, different angles of mouths, and terrible mouths. And that one's wonky, scratched out mouths, and that's okay. I mean, that's how I learn. That's how I practice. Right. That's how I go, oh, I like that mouth. So if I can draw that 10 more times, then I'll be able to repeat it.
Right.
But I don't understand what this like magical sketchbook practice is. That's like, oh, draw every day and then make this beautiful sketchbook. It's like, that's not a sketchbook.
No. Yeah. I completely agree with you. I don't consider that a sketchbook practice. I consider that you're sitting down to paint or draw or whatever. Like, you are taking time, and that is your work.
And it's a final product that you're showing.
And you're happening to do it in a sketchbook.
Right.
But like, no, that's just where it's landing. That, to me, that is not a sketch. No, my sketchbook looks pretty scary. and like half of them, are unfinished because I'm like, I don't even want to look in this anymore, you know, and like I put it
I've ripped
away.
pages out. I'm like, oh God, no.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and so like I have stacks of sketchbooks and I look back and I'm just like, but you know, the cool thing about it too is sometimes I look back and I'm like, you know what, that was a lot better than I thought it was. Like that's kind of cool, you know.
Yeah.
But no, I have a lot of junk in there too. And I also have like notes and like, you know, I used this pencil and I really hated that. Don't use that again, you know, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So like,
Which
you
makes
know,
sense. I mean, it's for you. It's for you to make notes for yourself and learn. It's a learning tool. It's
right.
not a final product.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, no, I'm totally with you. And you know, more power to them. I love it that you have this great, pretty quote, and I'm air quoting sketchbook, you know, that you've put together, you know, and you're showing it on Instagram, and that's cool. And more power to you, you know, but no, that's never going to be me. And I think, I don't know, Carrie, I wonder like, if more of us showed our janky sketchbooks, you know what I'm saying? Like maybe we would normalize it, but like I'm not going to show it. Like I'm just not.
Well, you know
going
what's
to show
funny is the reason, again, I keep coming back to this, but you know, the reason we started this podcast is because I think more people need to talk about the ugly side, because the ugly side is important. It's important to know it's there, and it's important to acknowledge it so then we don't feel so alone when we have an ugly day or we have a bad drawing day. Well, I don't know. I mean, maybe we should all share our janky sketchbooks, and then maybe that'll be the norm. And then it's like, then all of a sudden janky drawing is going to be like, really, I'm not talking about naive, you know, that still looks great.
Right.
I'm talking about bad.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, we should normalize that, I think.
So here's what I'm thinking, Carrie.
You first. No, I'm just kidding.
Here's what I'm thinking. Seriously. I think when we release this episode, as part of, because, you know, we will do some promotion for it. I think you and I need to have at least one image of like a janky sketchbook page. We'll do it together. Okay. And then maybe with the graphics gang, we need to declare a janky sketchbook day where we all promise and we're all going to post, you know, janky sketchbook day.
Yeah.
And yeah, let's do it. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
So,
and if you don't have a janky sketchbook, like if you draw digitally, because I draw digitally, I can share a sketchbook page, but I will also share one of my outside of my Illustrator artboards on one of my projects, because you should see the pieces. In fact, I even have files that are like, you know, I don't know, whatever the name of the file is, pieces. Because I just pull pieces off of things and I'm like, maybe I'll use that later. And they're not any good, but I still keep them off the artboard or in a different file. I mean, you know, they look pretty janky.
I have an entire folder on my in Procreate that's just called sketches, and they are whack.
Yeah.
They are horrible.
I love it though. Yeah. That's awesome.
Because it's just like, this is me like, you know, brain dumping so I don't forget the idea later.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like, here's my line drawing that I'm going to ink in, or it's just literally like junk that I'm like, just get it out of your head so you don't forget about it so you can come back and draw this later.
Yeah. I have stick figure. I had like, you know, I had an idea for something a little while ago and I was in the shower, and I knew that the moment I got out of the shower, I'm an evening showerer, whatever that means, but I got out of the shower and I knew, I always wondered, I think there's a certain type of person that is an evening showerer. Is that a word? I don't know. But I was like, I knew I was hungry. I knew I was going to want to make dinner. I was like, I don't want to sit down. That's going to take me, I'm going to get lost in a rabbit hole, but I needed to just get it down somewhere. So I hopped onto Procreate, and seriously, it is like 2 stick figures, like from the side. I mean, it is like her hair it looks like a 3-year-old drew it, but I know what it means. And it gave me the idea for the composition for the piece. So that's all I needed. But you know, that's what I consider a sketchbook.
Yeah.
Picture,
so,
you know,
I will draw anyway. So I'm going to hold this up and I'll describe it for the people who aren't seeing the video. Can you see this? I was in a meeting.
Okay, wait, pull it back a little. It's like, there you go. Okay.
All right. So like the little squares right over here.
Yeah.
Like that's a future pattern. And so like when I was saying like I did a little drawing today, like so I took a few minutes and got some ideas down in Procreate for that. But I was just in a meeting and I was like, okay, I don't want to forget this. And so I'm like drawing on my little whiteboard. And so for everyone who didn't see that, basically I held up my whiteboard that sits on my desk where I sketched a geometric pattern that I want to create. And it's completely rough. It's just scribbles.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
No,
know?
actually, but you know, I got the idea from what you showed. I got the idea of where you were going to head with that. So,
Mhm.
and really that's all you need. It's an idea. It's a tool for learning and it to remind you of things. It's like a things to do list.
Right.
My things to do list is not, you know, a novel. I look
Right.
at it almost the same way, you know, it's
Mhm.
like and sometimes I'm just experimenting, and that's how you learn.
Right.
You know, I don't sit down and you know, I don't know anybody who does and go, okay, I'm going to draw this one time and then I'm going to ink it in and then I'm done. You know,
Right.
I have like sometimes 8 to 10 fall leading up to something sketches where I love Procreate because I'll grab pieces of it and like, you know, paste it on top of something else and resize it and rotate it.
Mhm.
Especially sometimes if I'm drawing like an animal, sometimes I have problems with like proportions, like body
Mhm.
proportions, not, well, maybe a little less for animals, maybe with people, but I'll like grab an arm and paste it on top of another thing and move it around. And, you know, the
Mhm.
arm looks totally janky, but it's the right proportion.
Right.
So at least I'm like, all right, well, I can build on that.
Right. No, I hear that. Yeah. No, but I think that definitely ties into the whole concept of like, and what does drawing every day mean? Does drawing every day mean I'm working on this final product or this thing that I plan to post on POD, or does it mean I'm in my sketchbook? Like, what does that really mean? I'm not doing either every
Yeah.
day. I can tell
Yeah.
you that for certain. And a big portion of that is because literally, I don't have the time. But also, even if I did, I can tell you right now, I wouldn't do it because my mental health, it's like you know, people think like, you know, it's a joke or I see it like a meme a lot, which I hate because I think it desensitizes people to it. But like there are days where literally I'm like, I got up, I ate, I did what I had to do in terms of work, and I'm calling that victory today. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? Like, no, I'm not going to sit down because first of all, anything I'm going to draw is going to be impacted by my mental state.
Yeah.
Right. And so like if, you know, sometimes I'll do a Zentangle now but that's more about like, that's a coping skill, right? Like
Yeah.
that's a coping mechanism. But sit down and be like, oh yeah, I've got this, you can't see it. I've got my inspiration board for this collection. Right.
Yeah.
And so I took immersion earlier this year, whenever the launch was. And, you know, she wants you to do a collection.
Mhm.
Right. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to try her formula. Cause I'll, you know, I take these classes. I'll try everybody's formula once.
Yeah. And
And then
collections are good. I mean, that's
yeah,
solid advice.
right. It's totally, but I'm saying like her way of doing a collection is what I'm
Okay,
talking
yeah.
about. So her method for conceptualizing, you know, a collection. I'm like, okay, so I came up with what I want to do. And I have this great mood board that I made a la Bonnie Christine's methodology that I've not drawn a single thing for,
Yeah.
you know? And I'm like, I might get to it. That's cool. I want to,
Yeah.
but like, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, also mood boards can be intimidating too, because sometimes I always feel like I should make a mood board that's just photos.
Mhm.
Because if I make it with illustration, you know, unless I'm using the illustrations as like, okay, well, I like those colors,
Mhm.
I worry that I'm going to be like borrowing too much from the other illustration that I'm
Mhm.
looking at, even though I'm not copying it. And of course, I don't draw like that person.
Mhm.
You know, I always look at it like, okay, well, I should just, you know, not use illustrations as a mood board.
Right.
Because it just ends up informing my own work too much, and I want
Mhm.
mine to be original.
I think the thing that I struggle with is that, and it's really funny because as a writer, I'm an outliner, right?
Yeah.
Like I outline, I have chapter sketches, I know the beats, I know everything. And even though I will deviate, you know what I'm saying? Like if the character's going a different direction, like I'll deviate, it's fine, but I plan the fuck out of a book.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. You
I
have to,
find,
though. I mean, otherwise you'll end up with a book that doesn't make any sense.
well, there are plenty of people that do it. They call it by the seat of their pants. There are plenty of people that do not plan. They just freeform write, and then in post production is when they really, you know, move the pieces around, make it coherent. All that. I can't do that. That's not how. Like I cannot write that way.
Yeah.
I'm finding that the more I attempt to plan my art, the harder it is for me to actually create.
Huh.
And so like I'm the complete opposite when it comes to like the what you saw sketched out. I'm like, that's actually probably going to be a complex coordinate to something. It's not a hero. I don't know what the hero is going to be, but I'm going to start with that and then I'll let it develop organically. And I have found that works better for me.
Yeah.
Right. I'm not quite sure where that comes from, but like, so I struggle really hard with like, oh, do 5 thumbnail sketches and, think about 15 motifs. And I'm sorry, that's just not the way my brain works. I can't do it.
Yeah. And, we're all different. I mean, if that doesn't work for you, it's really awesome that you know what works for you though. And you're willing to, you're willing to identify it, and then you're willing to accept it and kind of work within those parameters. Because we all learn differently. We all work differently. Our brains are wired differently. I mean, we were talking to Stacey Dale last week, and I guess you probably will, back this up, but drawing in Adobe Illustrator, vector point to vector point, anchor point to anchor point is not natural for you guys.
Right.
It's totally natural for me. That is actually when I'm drawing, it's hard for me when I'm drawing using raster like Procreate to not picture. And sometimes I find myself being like, oh, I want to resize. Oh, I can't resize that. But that's just, that's how my brain works. It's like, I'm not like a math brain, but I guess it's more of an architectural math type of way of approaching it. I don't know.
No, I mean, I get what you're saying, because I think the one thing is like hello smart objects and Photoshop, because like that's how you get around that. But like in Procreate, I draw individual elements and I draw them like supersized, and then I scale them down. And I'll have like layers that are originals at those like supersized or whatever.
No, that's the best way to do it.
Yeah, but no, like, and I think it might be because I learned Photoshop first, way back in 1996, or so like, that was always the way my brain was working. And, Illustrator and I use all 3 programs. Like that's the thing. Like I use all 3 programs. And, Procreate was handy when I was working out that little geometric. But the more I did it, I'm like, you know what? Let me just take this into Illustrator. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. This isn't the best way to go about it. Like, let me just take it into Illustrator or even Photoshop, because that way I won't, because there's texture in it, so let me take it into Photoshop. But I'm going to get it out of Procreate is where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
But I think that where, going back to like our original cranky topic, I think that what drives me honestly batshit crazy is new artists getting this message that somehow if they're not drawing every day, there's something wrong, or they don't, that then you don't have what it takes. Because what it air quote takes is drawing every day, and drawing every day is equated to discipline.
Yeah.
Discipline is it a discipline to draw every day? Yes, it is. But can you be completely disciplined without drawing every day? Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
100%.
Yeah. And, there's definitely an underlying message of if you don't draw every day, and again, I'm sure a lot of new artists hear this and feel just deflated, is you're not a real artist.
Right.
Like you're a hobbyist, it's like, well, no, but you have a life. And also maybe it's better to draw on your good days that when you're in the flow and come out with things that you're really happy with.
Right.
And learn something versus beating your head against a wall if it's just an off day for you. And that's right. It's okay to have off days. And I would be shocked if, there's any artist out there that hasn't had their off days. I don't care who it is. I'm talking even Vincent van Gogh. Right. Everybody has an off day where you just don't feel it or you don't like what you're making. And that's what art is. I mean, it's not supposed to be, you're not adding numbers, you're creating something.
Right, exactly. And I say it all the time, the creative act in whatever form it takes is an act of courage.
Yep.
It is an act of courage. You are putting some part of your psyche, your soul, however you want to, short of a commissioned work, you know what I'm saying? But like if it's something you're creating, it's coming from you. That is an act of courage. And that should not be put in a box of how that should happen.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I want to be clear, I'm not shitting on anyone who actually does draw every single day.
Or who
More power to you.
Promotes that. I mean, as long as there's a message of you don't have to do this to be a real artist. But yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, I mean, like I said, I admire people who can do that.
Right.
But it just does not seem feasible for me on a regular basis. I have too many, I run my own business. I do not have another full-time job. My full-time job is I am an illustrator and surface designer and educator, and podcaster or whatever. But I have to do all my own marketing. I have to do all my own advertising. I have to plan my own classes and film my own classes. So of course I don't have time to draw every day. I don't have an assistant, it's me. So yeah,
exactly.
I mean,
and I think
how that is. You have a full-time job too. So
yep. And I'm a solopreneur in my art, practice, and so like, I would love somebody to take over my social media.
Oh my God. I looked at that for a little while.
Did you like a VA?
Yeah. I looked at having, really, I wanted a social media manager that would handle advertising, marketing, social media, email, newsletter. And I realized from what I was kind of putting out there into the world that I needed a quote virtual assistant. But then I realized that all the stuff that the virtual assistant would be doing is not really the stuff that is what takes up the most time. It was like, okay, I'm about to sound really old, but I swear to God, it takes me like 3 hours to figure out how to post an Instagram reel. Because I'm like, wait, I wanted to put music on that. Oh my God, I hit the wrong button. Oh wait, no, I didn't put the right hashtag. How do I edit this? I just pull out my hair. And that's why I hardly ever do Instagram reels, because I don't know what I'm doing.
Right.
So, and I was like, I want somebody to do that for me. But then I realized, and rightfully so, it's not cheap if you get somebody who's good. And I was like, this will come up, I'm sure, on our social media episode, but I just don't care that much about social media to put that much money or time into it.
Me either. And I know that some, and I'm sure it shows in the number of followers I have and stuff like that, but I just can't bring myself to care enough, and, which is why, you remember I wrote that newsletter at one point. I was like, I was doing all the things. I'm not doing it. I'm just not doing it. I can't do it. I hate it. It's just me. I'm not hiring anybody to do this. So we're just not. I'm going to do the things I like to do on social media, and, fuck all the advice. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, it's an uphill battle. It really is, because and also the goalpost keeps getting moved anyway. That's why I'm like, I used to feel shame in not posting enough on social media. Like, oh man, I could be doing so much better. Maybe I would have, get a million people contacting me for art licensing through social media. And then I thought, yeah, but they change the algorithm constantly and no one knows what it is. Even the people with 100-something thousand followers can't keep up. So who cares?
Right. Exactly. No, I'm totally with you there, and I think, and I'm going to assume positive intent with, people putting forth this message of draw every day. I think what they really mean to say, and sometimes they actually say it, but then they go further and say you got to draw every day, is be consistent, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Be consistent. And that consistency could be, I finish what I start. Right. It doesn't have to be I draw 3 days a week instead of 7 days a week. But, whatever keeps you coming back. Right. Yeah. Because the more you draw, the more practice you're going to get, the more you're going to find your signature way of doing things, which doesn't necessarily have to be like, especially in the freelance world. In the freelance world, your signature style doesn't necessarily mean a damn thing.
No, it doesn't. I mean, nobody cares what your signature style is if you're doing freelance illustration.
Right.
I mean, they care, they want to know what to expect, but they're not like, Yeah, exactly.
Right. It's
Especially
like,
if you're doing graphic design, definitely nobody cares what your signature style is.
exactly. They're just like, I mean, I think to a degree, because like your portfolio will be part of the reason why they chose you. It's like, so your approach and how you do things. But like the way, like I see that I have a specific way I draw flowers. They have these really big bulbous blooms and these skinny little anorexic stems, right?
Yeah.
Like every flower I draw ends up looking like that. I've given up trying to change it because apparently that is how I draw a flower.
Well, there you go.
Okay.
That's great.
Right.
That's your
But like,
signature style. It's your signature way of drawing flowers.
exactly. Like, so if you corporate, art director come to me and you want a flower, understand that's what you're going to get.
Yeah. And they can see that, with your portfolio, but
exactly.
Yeah.
But they don't care because they're not like, it's a whole different thing, and so, and then, trends and like there's all these different things. So yes, your creative voice is very important, but I think what's the most important thing is what keeps you coming back.
Yes.
Right. What keeps you drawing, because that is the most important thing. And the rest will come from that.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
I mean, I wish instead of saying draw every day, which when I hear that, I hear if you don't draw every day, then you're lacking or you're not living up to whatever standard. What I wish was being said instead sometimes is don't give up. Keep trying and keep showing up for yourself, no matter what that looks like in the end. And even if you hate it, just keep trying.
Exactly. I have, there's an artist who I went to high school with, and he's very prolific. He's a muralist now. He goes all over the world during murals. His name is Jeff Huntington. His studio is called Jahru, Jhru. Phenomenal. I mean, just phenomenal. Went to high school with him, right? He was my high school boyfriend's best friend. And so what I remember though, and where I'm going with this is, so if I was 14, that makes him, I don't know, he was 17 or 18. And I'm over there, I'm hanging with my boyfriend. He's like, Janet, can I paint you? And I was like, okay, sure, whatever. I knew he was an artist. So, but I'm like, but I'm going to read. He's like, that's fine. I just need to paint. Okay, fine. So I'm reading a book. I wish I had this painting now.
Oh yeah, I bet.
Right. Because of who he's become. And, but, and then when he was done, cause I was too into my book to care. I was just like, whatever, I'm reading. He was like, yeah, I have to practice. He said, I set a goal for myself. I have to do 79 portraits. And I don't know why it was that number, but 79 portraits. And when I saw it, I was like, I'm not sure that looks like me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But like now, like, whew, he practiced.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think that's more important than, these checklists that are like the 5 things it takes to be successful as an artist, and one of them's always draw every day. Because to your point, Carrie, the flip side of that is if you're not doing this, you won't be successful. And that is just not true.
Yeah.
But the bigger problem, I think, is, and I'm painting with a broad brush, people, pun intended, since we're artists. A lot of people want to be told what the formula is.
Yeah.
And it's a lot harder when you are like, hey, there's no formula.
Yeah.
The
you
only
have to
formula,
figure out what works for you.
Exactly. The formula is produce art.
Yeah.
However you do that has to work for you.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you should practice. And, like to your point, like I have it's in Procreate, but like just canvases upon canvases of noses, of eyes, of mouths. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm like, I'm just going to learn how to draw this,
Well, and that's the way to do it. I mean, that's the best way to do it, because otherwise you might realize like, oh my God, I love the way I drew that nose. And I would love, to have that be the way I draw noses. You may have to draw it 50 more times or 10 more times or whatever, but at least you were able to identify it. Sometimes, I had a graphic design professor who I absolutely loved, and he would say, listen, like if we give you a project or you're in the real world and you have a graphic design project and, you're afraid that you're going to make it too literal or you're going to go to Corny Town, I'm here to tell you, go to Corny Town. Just go there. Just try it, even if you don't like it, because sometimes it takes getting it down and for you to see what you do like and don't like. but that comes from, consistent showing up for yourself in whatever form that may be. But the everyday part, I think that's where it gets me, because every day, sometimes I have days where I literally look up, I wake up, I have my coffee, and then I realize it's 5 o'clock. And I'm not saying I woke up at 4 PM. I mean, I woke up at 8, but I have my days get away from me. I have so much going on, and I don't even eat. I don't even pay attention to what time it is. And how the heck was I supposed to draw that day? You know what I mean? Like, I didn't even realize where my day went. So, and I'm not going to, maybe I don't want to draw that night. Maybe it's like, you know what? I'm tired. I'm just going to eat my dinner and watch a little TV and go to bed. And that's okay. I have to give myself permission to not be this like perfect artist who's sitting down to this beautiful sketchbook that should be sold in a museum and drawing these beautiful drawings every day, because that's just not realistic.
Right. Exactly. No, I'm with you, and so, I try to do something every day. And what I mean by that is I do realize that I also get discouraged if I go too long without doing something in my business. And, so for me, where I ended up with is that means if I read an article from Illustrator for Hire today, I did something in my business.
Yeah. Or if you sent an email.
If I sent an email, exactly, or if I, whatever, little thing I had to do, even if it's administrivia, I did something in my business, and I never put the constraint on myself that I must draw every day.
Yeah.
I just won't. It's an artificial constraint that doesn't do it. Now, what I did do when I decided to go down this path of surface pattern design, because I had become a very good illustrator, I was doing all this work that was, exactly what I always thought art was supposed to be. And then all of a sudden I'd take this pivot and I get into surface pattern design, was have grace for myself that I'm learning something new.
Yeah.
Right. I'm learning something new. There are twists and turns that go with it. There are nuances, there are techniques, there are skills, there are things to think about. Like I kind of have what I call like a 3-layer approach to surface pattern design now. Right. So like the foreground, whatever that is, the background, whatever that is, and whatever textural element I want to add to it. Right. So like those 3 things, those are my 3 layers. Right. Well, I didn't have that when I started. Like a lot of my early patterns are just, well, first of all, like the spacing is weird. Like just a lot of stuff I go back and I'm like, yeah, you were new. You know what I'm saying?
Well, same thing with mine though. When you're learning, I mean, everyone goes through that, and that's part of getting to where you are later.
Right.
It's part of getting better is making the art that you don't love anymore.
Right. And that's why I think, consistency. I wish every guru who's out there who's trying to say like, this is what you have to do in order to, be successful, would just leave it at be consistent.
Yeah.
Be consistent. Actually, let me append that. Be consistent and have grace for yourself.
Yeah.
That's it. Because that's what it takes. You have to be consistent and you have to have grace for yourself, because you're learning, you're evolving. I had a conversation with Mandy Corcoran, and we were, and this is before we taped our interview. We were talking about the fact that, actually we were talking about my tattoos. And she, was talking about like thinking about getting a tattoo and having this debate on whether or not she should draw her own tattoo. And I said, you know what? I had that debate with myself as well. And I landed on no, I will never draw one of my own tattoos.
That is so funny. Me neither.
And
I have a full sleeve. I have a half sleeve. I have, I don't know, 17, 30, whatever. I have a lot. I spent way too much. I refused. I also don't have any of my own art. Well, that's not true. I have one thing because somebody gave it to me. And I have my own art behind me as part of my like class, my teaching, but in the rest of my house, it's not my work studio. I don't have any of my own art hanging up, and I didn't draw any of my own tattoos either.
Yeah, no, it's funny. My art is strictly in my studio as well. And everything else, like most of my art is Star Trek. If I'm being 100% honest. But no, what I'll tell you my reason. You tell me if yours is the same or different. So the
Okay.
reason I decided I was not ever going to draw one of my tattoos is because it occurred to me that if I did, it would represent a moment in time of my skill level. And if my skills got better or I evolved or my style changed, I didn't want to have that if I would become unhappy with it later.
Yeah.
Right. So I was like, it's always just going to be a moment in time. I'm not going to do it. Was that the same reason or did you do something different?
No, for me, mine was kind of well, when I first started getting tattoos when I was like 18 in like 1992, yes, I'm old. I didn't know any better and I got some like flash, which actually there's something to be said for good old classic flash, easy rose or skull or whatever. But then when I was like, okay, I want to be serious about this. My tattoos are other artists that I admire because I needed to be, which is similar to your reason. I wanted to be removed enough from it where I'm admiring it because someone else created it.
Yeah.
So it's Aubrey Beardsley, and my sleeve is my favorite children's book, Millions of Cats, at the book as a sleeve on my arm.
Oh, that's very cool.
But it's because I love Wanda Gog and I love her illustrations, and I didn't do them, so I was removed enough. So it's like looking at the book, which I love doing. And when I look at other people's art, I'm not critical of it because it's their art, not mine.
Oh, that's so funny. So my tattoos are a lot more personal than that. I love that though. I totally love that. Mine, so I got my first tattoo when I was 39. So I definitely started older and it was just my dog's names, with some paw prints. And the reason for that was I tend to get keloids. And so I wanted to test with something that I wouldn't hate and it'd be like a tribute to them. But if I scarred, I wouldn't care. Right.
Yeah.
So like, that's how I got started. But, and then when I wanted to go further and get more like illustrative tattoos, I met a tattoo artist here in town. And if you're listening from Wichita, go see Juan at Victory Tattoo. And he's gone to art school and he's a comic book artist and graphic novelist. And so like, I just give him elements. I'm like, I want this element. I want that element. Do your thing. And he just comes back with whatever, we tweak a sketch if we need to, but it's totally like his work on me.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. And so like, and I just made an appointment to get sleeved out on, because I have like 4 tattoos and I'm like, all right, it's time to like connect them.
Well, yeah. Well, I will give you one piece of advice on that. So when I wanted to do the children's book, there's a 2-page spread in the middle of the book, which I love. And that's kind of why I love the book. It's like, imagine the Pied Piper, but with cats.
Oh, cool.
So it's like 2 pages and there's nothing above or below it. It's all blank space except for a line in the middle of cats following this man. And I loved it. And I wanted it as like a spiral all the way up my arm. So my tattoo artist and I sat down and with the little, carbon copy paper and enlarged and, laid it out on my arm. And then I usually spend 7 hours at a time. I know I'm crazy, but I sit for 7 hours straight because I'd rather just do that and get it closer to done. But she did, it was just the outlines for the cats, but it went from my wrist all the way up to my shoulder. And it was just an outline, but I ended up with a 3-day fever. And I assume it's because of surface area, but my body freaked out because of all the area that had been tattooed at once, my entire arm. So I would say don't do your entire arm, even if it's just an outline in one sitting. I would do half because I don't know, maybe it wouldn't happen to you, but I mean, I felt like it was like when I had COVID. I mean, I literally felt like I got hit by a train. I think my body just freaked out. Anyway.
I'll bear that in mind. So the irony is we do have a like, we're going to do it in one session, but my whole forearm is already tattooed and my shoulder is already tattooed. So what he's doing is he's actually doing Islamic biomorphic pattern, but he's just kind of connecting It's
Okay,
filling in,
all
it's
right.
filling in the space,
Okay,
right? And like, so the one on my forearm is full color. The one up here on my shoulder is black and white. And so he's gradiating from full
good.
color
Ooh, oh my
to
God, that's
black.
so cool.
Yeah, I'm
It'll
so
be like the
excited.
Wizard of Oz, up your arm or down your arm.
Right? I'm so excited. I cannot wait for this. And so like we went,
Yay.
and I just handed him like, here are your elements.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. It's so important to have a good tattoo artist that you trust too. Mine
Yeah.
is a woman. And I started going to her when she was an apprentice, and we just get along really well. She's
Mhm.
like an old goth rocker, and so am
Uh-huh.
I. And
Uh-huh.
I can just sit with her for 7 hours and just hang out anyway.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah.
I love that. I used to go to the first couple of tattoos I got. I went to like some place in Atlanta, and I felt like I was in someone's living room where I was uninvited, and I
Oh,
was the dorky kid and they were the cool kids. That's exactly how it felt. And I was brave and I said, I don't care. I'm going to do it anyway. But then
uh-huh.
once I discovered Joey Gallagher at Liberty Tattoo in Atlanta, I just fell in love with her. She's amazing. And I've been going to her since 1993 now.
Yeah.
So for a long time. She left for California for like 10 years. I didn't get a tattoo for 10 years
Yeah.
because she just wasn't here.
Mhm. Yeah. Like I already know if Juan ever shuts his shop down, like I'm done. I just won't be getting tattoos anymore. That's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, exactly. It's good that you have somebody.
Yeah. So we should probably bring this back around though,
Yeah.
we are tattoo enthusiasts. That's how it goes.
Yeah.
So let's leave this with some like advice. Let's make sure we end on advice. So we were saying the thing that makes us really cranky is we don't like this concept that if you're not drawing every single day, you're somehow not going to be successful, or feeling shame around that, because the message is out there that if you want to be successful, you must draw every day. So what do we like? You give your advice, I'll give mine.
So I would say when you hear stuff like draw every day, or in my case too, when you see someone's sketchbook that looks like a museum piece and feel terrible about your sketchbook, remember that the message that really is probably trying to be conveyed, or at least the message you should take away from it, is just don't give up. Don't say to yourself, I don't want to draw anymore because I don't like what I'm drawing. Just keep showing up for yourself and keep trying. So instead of feeling like you have to draw every day, just try to remember that you want to just keep showing up for yourself in whatever form that takes.
Exactly. And I'm going to echo what Carrie's saying. So basically, my recommendation to anyone is have grace for yourself. Remember that in all things, we're just trying to get better, improve, and practice. Keep showing up, be consistent, but figure out what that looks like for you more than anything else.
Awesome.
Cool. All right. I think that's a wrap.
All right.
If you're loving this podcast, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. And while you're at it, we'd love it if you could rate and review us. Your support helps more people discover the show, and it keeps us going strong. Thanks for tuning in. It means a lot. I'm Toni.
And I'm Carrie. It's okay to be cranky.
In the meantime, keep creating.